For 11 years, Alda made us laugh as Hawkeye Pierce. But when the cameras stopped rolling, he was hiding a pain that would haunt him for decades. Now, he is revealing what really happened on MASH. The co-star who quit because of him, the episode that tore the cast apart, and the tragic story that was too dark for TV. This is the story America never knew about MASH. Alda was born on January 28, 1936, in New York City. His full name was Alfonso Joseph D. Abruzzo. His father, Robert Alda, was an actor and singer. His mother, Joan Brown, had once been a beauty pageant winner. From the start, Alan's life was connected to show business. His father performed in vaudeville and burlesque, so Alan spent much of his childhood backstage. He watched comedians, dancers, and musicians perfect their acts. The energy of live performances surrounded him. It was an exciting world, but it was also unpredictable. His father's work meant constant travel, and that made life unstable. Alan's childhood took a difficult turn when he was 7. In 1943, he contracted polio, a disease that left many children with lifelong disabilities. The only available treatment was painful. It involved wrapping his limbs in hot woolen blankets every hour to help his muscles recover. His parents couldn't afford a nurse, so they did the treatments themselves. His mother and father worked tirelessly to ease his pain, even when it seemed unbearable. For a while, he could barely move. At one point, his left arm was the only part of his body he could control. The experience left a deep impression on him. He saw his parents sacrifice and felt the weight of their love. He learned how to push through pain, even when things seemed hopeless. That resilience stayed with him for the rest of his life. His mother's struggles added another layer to his childhood. Joan Brown was elegant and poised, but she also battled mental health issues. At times, her emotions created tension in their home. Alan grew up learning how to read people's moods and adjust. He became good at understanding others, a skill that later shaped his acting. When he finally decided to pursue a career in entertainment, he made a change that symbolized both his independence and his connection to his family. He took the first 2 letters of his father's first name, Alfonso, and the first 2 letters of his mother's last name, Brown. That's how Alfonso d'Abruzzo became Alan Alda. The name was simple and easy to remember, but it also carried a piece of his parents with it. When he enrolled at Fordham University in New York, he didn't just focus on school. He threw himself into acting, joining the university's radio station, WFUV. There, he worked on radio plays, learning how to use only his voice to bring characters to life. College wasn't just about performing. During his junior year, Alda studied in Paris and acted in Rome. Traveling opened his eyes to different styles of theater. It gave him a deeper understanding of storytelling and how culture shaped performances. When he returned to the U.S., he kept honing his skills. He joined the Compass Players and later Second City in Chicago. These improv groups pushed him to think fast and trust his instincts. They taught him how to stay in the moment, a skill that would serve him well for the rest of his career. In the late 1950s, Alda got a grant from the Ford Foundation, which gave him a chance to work at the Cleveland Playhouse. He performed in multiple productions, including To Dorothea's Son, Heaven Come, Wednesday, Monique, and Job. These roles put him on stage with experienced actors, helping him grow. But his early years weren't just about acting. As a child, he had battled polio. He was only 7 when he got sick, and his parents followed a treatment method that involved wrapping him in hot woolen blankets and stretching his muscles. It was painful, but it worked. That early fight taught him resilience, something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. His first big break on Broadway came in 1959 with Only in America. That was just the beginning. In 1961, he took on a role in Pearly Victorious, playing Charlie Cacioppi. Then, in 1964, he starred in Fair Game for Lovers, a romantic comedy that let him show off both his charm and comedic timing. This was the performance that really made people pay attention. Around the same time, he started appearing on television. He joined That Was the Week That Was, a satirical news program that ran from 1964 to 1965. It helped him sharpen his comedic skills and introduced him to a much bigger audience. That same year, he took on a bold role in The Owl and the Pussycat. He played Felix the Owl, starring opposite Diana Sands. The play became famous not just for its humor, but for something much bigger. Alda and Sands, who was black, shared a kiss on stage. At the time, that was rare, and the moment sparked controversy. They even received hate mail. But Alda never backed down from challenges, on stage or off. In 1968, he made the leap to film with Paper Lion. He played journalist George Plimpton, a writer who joins the Detroit Lions to experience professional football from the inside. The role let Alda mix humor with drama, and he held his own alongside real-life football players like Alex Karras and Joe Schmidt. 2 years later, he took on a more serious role in Jenny, starring opposite Marlo Thomas. The film followed a young man and a pregnant woman navigating an unexpected relationship. It was a smaller film, but it proved he could handle dramatic material just as well as comedy. Even with these successes, Alda struggled to find stability in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He bounced between small television roles, trying to make ends meet. He showed up on game shows like What's My Line and I've Got a Secret. He landed guest spots on The Phil Silvers Show, and That Was the Week That Was. But none of these roles gave him the breakthrough he needed. He was talented, and people in the industry knew it. Still, he hadn't landed the kind of role that would make him a star. But then, everything changed. Alan Alda became a household name when he took on the role of Captain Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce in MASH. The show ran from 1972 to 1983 and followed the lives of doctors and nurses at a mobile army hospital during the Korean War. It was a war show, but it wasn't about battles. It was about people trying to survive in an unbearable situation. Humor was their defense against the horrors around them. No one embodied that better than Hawkeye. He was a brilliant surgeon, but he never took authority seriously. He cracked jokes, pulled pranks, and questioned every rule that didn't make sense. But under all of that, he cared deeply. He couldn't stop the war, but he could save lives. The name Hawkeye came from The Last of the Mohicans. In that story, the character was brave and resourceful. In MASH, Alda's Hawkeye lived up to that name. He fought battles of his own, not with guns, but with scalpels and words. He stood up for his patients, argued with commanders, and did whatever it took to keep himself and his friends from losing their minds. His quick wit made audiences laugh, but his anger and heartbreak made them feel the weight of war. Alda's performance made Hawkeye the center of the show. Some cast members felt the focus shifted too much toward his character, but audiences couldn't get enough. MASH became one of the most popular shows on television. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a statement. The show aired while the Vietnam War was still happening, and even though it was set in Korea, its message was clear. War was cruel. It destroyed people in ways that went beyond physical wounds. As the series went on, Alda took on more creative control. He wasn't just acting, he was writing and directing. His biggest achievement came in the final episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. He co-wrote and directed it, giving the show an unforgettable ending. On February 28, 1983, millions of people tuned in to watch the last moments of MASH. The numbers were historic. Over 105 million people watched live, and the total audience reached 121 million. It was the most watched television broadcast in history at the time. The finale was more than just a goodbye. It was a reflection on everything the characters had been through. It captured their exhaustion, their grief, and their desperate attempts to hold on to their humanity. Some moments were funny. Others were heartbreaking. The war was over, but no one was leaving untouched. Alda made sure every scene had weight. Every goodbye felt real. For nearly 3 decades, no scripted show came close to matching its viewership. Alda's influence on MASH went far beyond its final episode. He helped shape the show's identity. He made sure it didn't just make people laugh, it made them think. War wasn't just about soldiers and strategy. It was about doctors trying to save lives. It was about people forced into a situation they never asked for. Alda believed humor was the best way to tell those stories. Laughter could make the unbearable feel a little lighter. But the show never let audiences forget the reality behind the jokes. As Alda's role in shaping MASH grew, so did tensions behind the scenes. Some cast members felt the balance of the show had shifted too much toward Hawkeye. His presence was undeniable, and his influence on the show was huge. Wayne Rogers played Trapper John McIntyre, the fun-loving surgeon and close friend of Hawkeye Pierce. When MASH began, Trapper and Hawkeye were supposed to be equals. Their friendship was the heart of the show, and Rogers expected his role to reflect that. But as the series went on, Alan Alda's character took center stage. He wasn't just acting, he was also writing and directing. His influence kept growing, and the balance shifted. Rogers felt like Trapper was becoming a sidekick instead of a co-lead. He grew frustrated. The character he had signed up to play was slipping away. He had no major conflicts with Alda, but the creative direction of the show made staying difficult. After 3 seasons, he decided to leave. His exit was abrupt. The show didn't give Trapper a proper farewell. One day, he was there, and the next, he was gone. There was no emotional goodbye, no moment for fans to process his departure. Rogers moved on. In 1979, he got another chance to play a version of Trapper in Trapper John, M.D. This time, he was the clear lead. Meanwhile, MASH introduced a new character, B.J. Hunnicutt, played by Mike Farrell. He was softer and more grounded, a different kind of partner for Hawkeye. The show continued to evolve, proving it could survive major cast changes. Years later, Alda and Farrell found themselves in a creative debate. It happened during Season 7, in an episode called Preventative Medicine. The story follows Hawkeye as he makes a drastic choice. He wants to remove a reckless commander's appendix, not because the man is sick, but to stop him from sending more soldiers to their deaths. BJ refuses to take part. He sees it as a clear ethical violation. That disagreement wasn't just in the script. It was real. Farrell believed BJ would never support something like that. Alda believed Hawkeye would. Their debate made the episode stronger. Instead of a clear right or wrong, the story left viewers with a difficult question. Does preventing harm ever justify doing something unethical? Hawkeye goes through with the surgery, but instead of feeling like a hero, he is haunted by it. By the time MASH reached its final episode in 1983, the show had changed. It wasn't just a comedy anymore. It had become something much deeper. The series finale, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, remains one of the most watched TV episodes in history. At the center of it is Hawkeye's breakdown. a storyline inspired by real stories of PTSD from soldiers who served in Korea. Alda, who co-wrote and directed the finale, wanted to show the lasting effects of war. Hawkeye had always been the quick-witted, sharp-tongued surgeon, but now he was unraveling. A repressed memory resurfaced, revealing the full weight of his trauma. At the time, PTSD wasn't widely understood. Many veterans suffered in silence. MASH brought the issue into the spotlight. When MASH ended in 1983, Alda didn't slow down. He had spent over a decade playing Hawkeye Pierce, but he was ready for something new. He stepped into directing while still taking on acting roles that challenged him in different ways. One of his first major films as a director was The Four Seasons in 1981. He didn't just direct it, he wrote it, and starred in it too. The movie followed three couples who vacationed together every year, showing how their friendships and marriages changed over time. It wasn't just a light-hearted comedy. It had depth, honesty, and moments that felt real. Audiences connected with it, and critics praised Alda's ability to tell a meaningful story. It was clear he had a talent for more than just acting. While he built his career as a director, he continued to take on acting roles that showed his range. One of his most memorable performances came in Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors in 1989. He played Lester, a self-absorbed TV producer who was both charming and irritating. The role was different from anything he had done before, and he played it with the perfect mix of humor and arrogance. His performance earned him awards from the New York Film Critics Circle and the National Board of Review. It also proved that he could switch between comedy and drama effortlessly. With The Four Seasons and Crimes and Misdemeanors, he had established himself as more than a TV actor. He was a storyteller, someone who could shape a project both in front of and behind the camera. More than a decade later, he reached another milestone in his career. In 2004, he played Senator Owen Brewster in Martin Scorsese's The Aviator. It was a tense political role that put him up against Leonardo DiCaprio's Howard Hughes. The film was a huge success, earning 11 Academy Award nominations and winning 5. Alda's performance stood out. He made Brewster sharp, ambitious, and calculating without turning him into a simple villain. His work earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. It was proof that even after decades in the industry, he was still evolving as an actor. Beyond acting and directing, Alda had another passion: science. In 1993, he became the host of Scientific American Frontiers, a PBS show about new discoveries in science and medicine. But he wasn't just a presenter. He asked real questions, talked to scientists, and even took part in experiments. He had a way of making complicated ideas simple, which helped viewers connect with the show. One episode had him testing an experimental virtual reality vehicle. The experience left him feeling motion sick, but instead of cutting it from the show, they left it in. Moments like that made the show fun and engaging. Scientific American Frontiers ran for 15 seasons, inspiring many young viewers to pursue careers in science. Some of them even appeared on the show as kids, and later became scientists themselves. Alda's passion didn't stop when the series ended in 2005. In 2009, he founded the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University. The center trains scientists to explain their work in ways that are clear and engaging. Alda believed science was for everyone, not just experts. Through his work on the show and the center, he made a lasting impact, proving that storytelling isn't just for movies and television. It can change the way people understand the world. Alan Alda and Arlene Weiss met in a way that felt like fate. It was 1956, and they were at a dinner party hosted by a mutual friend. At some point in the evening, A homemade rum cake slipped off the counter and landed on the kitchen floor. Most guests hesitated, but not Alan and Arlene. Without thinking twice, they both took a bite. That small, spontaneous moment brought them together. Alan has joked for years that after eating that cake, they were inseparable. 1 year later, on March 15, 1957, they got married. From the start, their relationship was built on trust, laughter, and a deep understanding of each other. Arlene, a photographer and writer, was always by Alan's side. She supported him through the highs and lows of Hollywood, making sure their home remained a place of warmth and stability. Alan often credits her with keeping him grounded. While his career took off, she worked behind the scenes to protect their private life. Their marriage wasn't just about grand romantic gestures. It was about the small moments that held them together. They shared the same humor and values, and they never stopped enjoying each other's company. When Alan was diagnosed with Parkinson's years later, they faced it the same way they had faced everything else, together. As Alan's career soared, he and Arlene made a choice. They wanted their family to have a normal life, far from the pressures of Hollywood. They raised 3 daughters, Eve, Elizabeth, and Beatrice, with that goal in mind. Alan was a well-known actor, but at home, he was just Dad. He made sure to be there for important moments, no matter how busy his schedule was. Arlene played a huge role in keeping their home life steady. She created a space where their daughters could grow up without the weight of fame on their shoulders. Family time was filled with laughter, stories, and a sense of normalcy. Alan has often said that his daughters kept him humble. They would tease him about his acting roles, making sure he never took himself too seriously. As the years went on, their daughters found their own paths. They built careers, started families, and stayed close to their parents. The Aldas had managed to do something rare. They kept their family life intact, even in the unpredictable world of Hollywood. In 2015, Alan noticed small changes in his body. His thumb trembled slightly, and he started acting out dreams in his sleep. He went to the doctor and got the diagnosis: Parkinson's disease,